God uses the suffering, or at least can use the suffering that evil causes in our lives, in your life, and in my life, to produce something good. And that's really what I want to talk about over the next few minutes. The Apostle Paul, he demonstrated this with his entire life. He knew what suffering was. 2 Corinthians 11, we read that he was beaten, he was in danger all the time of death, whether he was in the city or out in the wilderness, or whether starving or facing 39 lashes 5 times. All of that, we read what Paul went through as he gives us his testimony. And in all of that, in the midst of all of that, in Romans, he says, "For I consider the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that's to be revealed to us." You see, Paul, as he looks forward to heaven and to future glory, he understands that these sufferings pale in comparison to what awaits. And I think that there's good reason for God to allow pain and suffering, evil in our lives. As Joseph confronts his brothers in Genesis 50, he says, "As for you," Joseph's brothers, he says, "As for you, you meant evil against me." He's talking about the evil deeds his brothers did for a long time ago to him. He's, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." You see, not only does he say that good things can come from the evil, that good thing has come from this evil, that you meant this for evil, but God meant it for good. He also gives the reason why. God used the evil in Joseph's life to prepare him for the moment that he found himself in, basically saving the nation of Israel as he opened up the gates of Egypt, the food stores to the Israelites, saving them, a whole people group saved. And it started with evil, but God meant it for good, is what Joseph is saying. God also uses evil and suffering for sanctification. 2 Corinthians 4 says that these are but momentary light afflictions, producing in us an eternal weight of glory far beyond all comparison. And notice 2 things there. These are but momentary light afflictions. This too shall pass. Now, in somebody who's wrestling with evil and pain and suffering, if you right now are finding yourself in the midst of tremendous pain and suffering, that doesn't help. I know it doesn't help, and I'm so sorry that you're going through that, whatever it is. But it doesn't mean it's not true. Brett Kunkle says, "Don't confuse the moment with the story." Don't confuse the moment that you find yourself in with the entire story of your life. These are trials and tribulations sometimes for a very long time. We feel that we're going through these things. But when you look ahead at what you know that things are going to pass, these hard times, especially when you apply to these things a heavenly timeline, a divine timeline, an eternal timeline, the glory that awaits us far outshines the amount of time that we're going to spend in pain and suffering here, even if it's an awfully horrid life. But there's something else Paul is saying here. These are but momentary light afflictions, but they're producing something in us that otherwise wouldn't be there. Paul is saying that these pains, these trials, these tribulations that we go through in day-to-day life are producing something in us that otherwise wouldn't be there, that we go through them and they're producing something. Mainly, they're preparing us to shoulder the weight of glory, to shoulder the heavenly rule. We have to go through these trials. Now, do I necessarily know why? But no, I don't. But my ways, God says, my ways are not your ways. My ways are higher than your ways. I don't understand everything that God does, but I know what the word says, and Scripture tells us that these things are true. We're told in James that he uses pain. God, he uses pain and suffering to bring about perfection. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance." That's crazy. It's doing something. It's not for naught. There's not like this angry God up there just watching and waiting for you to get yourself in trouble or causing these sufferings and these trials to come to your door so he can laugh at you. No, they're not for naught. They're doing something here. They're producing endurance in our lives. And then he goes on to say, "And let that endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." You see, God's using life's circumstances to shape us and to mold us into what he wants us to be. Now, I got to say something, and this is controversial. I understand this is controversial, guys, and it's hard to hear, but my prayer life changed a few years ago. When I found myself in trial, I had a newborn baby in the NICU, Phoebe. Very scary, very, very scary. She was in NICU. She contracted RSV when she was 1 day old, respiratory infection, and her oxygen saturation levels were falling like into the 70s. It was so scary. And she had to be hooked up to all these tubes. And my wife was staying with her in the NICU, thank God, because there was like a separate room. She could stay there. I was home with our firstborn, Eva, who I think was not even 2, and working full time. And it was just so hard, like, and struggling with this. Well, my prayer life changed. I stopped asking God. I mean, I kept asking him for healing, but I started focusing on what God would have for me in the moment. What is it that I can learn? Is there something there? And I learned endurance, how to stand in the face of trials and walk through them. Um, you know, and that leads to the next point here. That the trials of life, guys, they lead to something good. They build character in us. Romans 5:3 and 4, it says that, and not only this, but we also exalt. Again, we exalt in our tribulations. Like Paul's saying that we celebrate in them, we exalt in our tribulations, knowing that tribulations bring about perseverance, and perseverance, proven character, and proven character, hope, and a hope that does not disappoint. You see, they build in us a proven character. It makes us a veteran of the world. We're no longer a green recruit. We're that colonel or that commander in God's army as we go through the trials of life and we face them. You know, he builds things us. He builds us up in character, and that not just that, but the perseverance that leads to proven character also leads to instilling in us a hope that does not disappoint, ultimately a hope to future glory. You see, everything leads to glory through the cross of Jesus. And when we have this worldview, I think we have a good reason to believe that there's good reason for the evil and suffering in the world.